Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce RTX 4080 Super in Dragon's Dogma 2. So this one is the Founders Edition model of the card. We are running it with the latest Nvidia drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs here in Tech Power-Ups. GPU Z resizable bar is also enabled, and we got 16GB of GDDR6 with this card. And over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D with half of its cores disabled, so we're only utilizing the 3D cache cores. They are faster for gaming, and Gamers Nexus actually tested the 7800X3D, which is basically this thing with half of its cores disabled. It was getting around the same FPS as an i9-14900K. Finally, on the memory tab, we're using 32GB of DDR5 6000MHz RAM in dual channel. This is CL30 as well, and let's get right into it, shall we? Okay, since the performance is absolutely terrible in this game, I'm actually going to be using a controller, so it feels a little bit better, you know. And let's go over the settings first. I am starting this at the 4K resolution right away, using the maximum settings, no upscalers like FSR3 or DLSS at the moment. Nvidia Reflex is also turned off, and Ray Tracing as well as motion blur and lens distortion are also turned off. So it's max settings minus the ones that I said, and ray tracing. Okay, so we're in the city area, my friends. I'm gonna start counting our FPS, and oh boy, it is already dropping from 60 frames per second. This is a very expensive machine, guys, and if you take a look at that GPU usage, it is actually not maxing out most of the time, at least around here in the town areas, which are super duper CPU intensive. This is what we're seeing here, a CPU bottleneck with one of the fastest CPUs for gaming in the market at the moment. How crazy is that? It's also stuttering all over the place. Our 1% lows are at 30 frames per second, and it is also dropping from 60 FPS quite often, guys. Holy crap, I didn't really expect this behavior, honestly, before I got to this town area right here, because out in the woods, it's playable, you know, it still stutters a little bit from time to time, and frame time consistency is pretty awful in this game, but it definitely was quite a bit smoother of an experience inside of the woods and fighting the goblins and stuff like that, basically where you start the game at after the first mission. And over here, we're back in the woods, okay, still very close to the city area, but CPU usage went down considerably, so it's not rendering all of the NPCs inside of the town anymore, and it's not as CPU intensive. And here we can actually max out the RTX 4080 Super. It's at 100%, or like 95 to 100% most of the time. Still drops sometimes because of the little stutters, but yeah, this is a GPU bound scenario, finally, okay? So for testing GPUs in this game, it's gonna be... Oh my gosh, what the hell is that outfit? It's gonna be a very hard task to do, guys. What is going on over there? It's like water. What the hell? Dudes! Hello? Why are they... Oh, they're fighting the water. Okay. Alright, that's one of the weirdest things that I've seen all week. And that's awesome to say as well, because I've been testing Horizon Forbidden West all week, basically. A game that looks way better than this one, and it performs a heck of a lot better at the same time. Right? Yeah. And it's also not CPU bound most of the time, even with like an R5 3600 and an RTX GPU like a 3060, stuff like that. It shouldn't really be CPU bound, but this one is. It will be CPU bound on a lot of systems. That's why a lot of people are complaining about the performance in this title. I mean, I have made a video on the 3060 in the woods area. I wasn't impressed with performance, okay? It's not well optimized even for the GPU. Right? But apparently when you get to these big city areas, it just goes to hell because of the CPU bottleneck that it suffers from. Like, we can't even say that, well, the CPU is bad. Like, in the 3060 video, some people were commenting, yeah, well, the 3060 is 3 years old already. It's a bad GPU. It was bad when it came out, whatever. So, of course, it can run this new title absolutely fine. Well, First of all, Horizon Forbidden West ran absolutely fine on the 3060 and it looked way better and it has a big open world as well. And second, yes, you're right, it wasn't a good GPU when it came out, so there's that. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't run this game just fine at like 1080p low settings, which is what I tested it with, and it struggled a little bit and it looked terrible on low settings. This is high. These max settings, actually, aside from ray tracing. Now, speaking of ray tracing, we need to test that out as well. And over here at night time, what is this? I don't care. Passage of time, okay. At night time, things seem to be kind of the same, maybe a little bit more GPU bound, actually, because that GPU utilization is more often between 90 and 100% than it was before during daytime. Oh, I probably know why that is. It's because at nighttime there aren't as many NPCs running around. They're probably sleeping or whatever. So yeah, that's probably why, guys. Dropping into the 40s. You know what? Let's try ray tracing. I'm gonna go back to the previous save where it was daytime. Now, because we have a CPU bottleneck most of the time, enabling DLSS on quality, balance, performance, ultra performance, it won't really do anything because GPU usage wasn't maxed out, and if it wasn't maxed out, it would just drop down GPU usage even further and get the same FPS. This is not a CPU intensive setting, you know, so the FPS would be the same because we're CPU limited once again. But ray tracing is usually a very GPU and CPU intensive setting. I really hope it's more GPU intensive than CPU intensive in this title, because otherwise we'll get very low FPS. And still a CPU bottleneck. Oh wait, I can only load from last save and load from last in rest. I think I'm gonna go with this one. Oh no! Oh no! No freaking way! We're here! This is so far away from the city, I just wanted to make it daytime. Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to the city and make it daytime. But first, I guess I'm just gonna take a look at it around here. This area is where I tested it with the RTX 3060, the 12GB. And I'm gonna start counting our FPS. It's not really too stuttery, as you can see. Not as stuttery as the town or castle or whatever crap that was area. Yes. Well, I went through a cutscene, so I needed to restart counting the FPS, guys. But out here, yeah, woods area, once again, getting like 50-ish frames per second with full-on ray tracing enabled, full GPU utilization as well. I know that the CPU can do like 80 FPS around here, maybe even more than that sometimes. That's the maximum that I've seen with the RTX 3060, but the CPU was still not a bottleneck, even at 80 FPS. So yeah, we're fully GPU bound, and we're going to be fully GPU bound in these forest areas, thankfully. Also, VRAM utilization is not really terrible. That's probably the only good thing that I can say about this game. In terms of VRAM usage, it's not a VRAM hog like The Last of Us Part 1 was back when it released, you know? That was absolutely terrible. It would eat all of the VRAM that it could. But yeah, over here, 10 gigabytes, that's fine. 12 gig GPUs will be able to run this absolutely fine without any stuttering or swapping into RAM issues. Now, since the game is actually stable around here, I'm gonna enable DLSS Quality, because now we can actually see an improvement with it. And with DLSS Quality, things are a bit blurrier, I can instantly notice it, but we are above 60 FPS this time around. So at least we can have a good experience outside of big town areas with the RTX 4080 Super and a strong CPU. Again, if you have a weaker CPU, you're screwed in this game, because it will eat all of the CPU that it can in terms of single core performance and stuff. Well, I guess since we're replaying this entire thing until I get to the city again, because the game didn't really save it there and it doesn't allow me to load it, we're just gonna have to fight this little dragon over here, you know. This huge dragon over here. There we go, look at that. It's actually really stable right now. It doesn't drop from 60 FPS. The frame time graph is buttery smooth, finally. Well, right now it's varying a little bit, but yeah, this area, at least this section, ooh, dropping into the 50s. is really, really nice in terms of optimization. If only all of the sections in this game were this good, right? Okay, this area was also pretty intensive when I tested the RTX 3060, especially this part over here. Yep, dropping down into the lower 50s and the frame time graph going a little bit crazy right there. But yeah, you can definitely tell that this is a much more intensive area than it was back in the woods, and GPU usage is fluctuating a little bit into like the low 90s. I wonder if the CPU is becoming a little bit of a bottleneck sometimes over here. 87%, 94, 93. It's when I move the camera around. Maybe it's just the frame times being completely broken in this game as well. Oh boy, what a big shame once again. You know what? Ray tracing in this game might not be that intensive, honestly, because previously without DLSS we were seeing around 45 FPS in an area kind of like this, you know, with a little bit of vegetation, and now with DLSS we're getting like 60 somethings, but with ray tracing enabled at the same time. Wait, can I disable DLSS, please? Oh, boy, these menus are so weird as well. I'm gonna turn it off. And let's see ray tracing without DLSS. Yeah, kind of the same thing. Really, it's not the same area as we tested previously at native resolution without RT, but it is very, very close in performance. So I guess you can play at native resolution absolutely fine, even with RT enabled, as long as you aren't in a city. That's very important, okay? Because once we get there, I'll show you. The performance, it's going to be crap, because this is how I started it with the 4080 Super. I played all the way through to the city with the RTX 3070 laptop that I have, and it just got wrecked there. It was actually getting 20 FPS down to like 17 FPS sometimes as well. I think this was like a checkpoint or something, so I'm actually going to disable ray tracing right here until we get to the city, so we can see a little bit of the performance with DLSS, without DLSS in these foresty areas, out of town areas, you know. Here we go, DLSS is off and ray tracing is also off. Everything else is still the same on the highest settings. Gonna start counting the FPS again, and let's make it through the woods here, through this little area. Now, something interesting is gonna happen. I think I'm gonna spoil it to you guys, because this is very early on in the game. Everyone who is going to play this game is probably going to get to this point, so yeah, who cares, really? It's something interesting that's going to happen. Oh, but actually, guys, maybe not a lot of people are going to get to this point after all, because you probably shouldn't play this game in its state. You will need a very beefy CPU. Most people probably can't run it very well, right? Alright, you know what, guys? This is actually performing quite well, at least over here, okay? Maybe it doesn't look good enough to justify the performance that we're getting.Maybe we should have had, like... What do you want? I am talking to the people here. Stop it. Maybe looking at these graphics, you might think, well, yeah, 4080 Super should be capable of achieving like 150 FPS or something. But it is playable. It is above 60 FPS consistently. It doesn't really stutter too much around here, which is nice. And this is the interesting thing that I told you about, guys. Let's fight this bastard. Totally missed that. Let's go. We got our mage right there fighting the master. What? Why are you there? You're supposed to be healing all of us. Come on. A lot of water effects as well. Nice. It's quite cool, guys. Not gonna lie. If the game performed like this the entire way through, it would be nice indeed, right? Come on. Stop hitting the rocks, Crisp. Stop hitting the rocks. Let's go. He's almost dead. Come on. Almost. There we go. Die, you bastard. Come on. Yes. Gonna use my special attacks right here. Did you get out of the insides of this guy? Come. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Okay, now we're dropping into the 30s. I totally forgot about this part. I guess we made it. But yeah, that's pretty nice, right? It's interesting that there are so many big enemies for you to take out and stuff. The gameplay might be nice, especially with the controller, but Again, with these graphics, it should have been way better optimized. It should run way, way better than this. This is probably like the most intensive game on PC, especially when you get to the town area and little city area. Right, we're finally back here, my friends. The stuttering is real. The low FPS are real as well. And, well, the CPU bottleneck is also real. So let's finally go to the system here, return to the... Maybe save and return. Yes, save and return to the title screen. And let's enable ray tracing, which does make quite a bit of a difference. Looking at this image, at least, look at that. It's kind of crazy, actually. But yeah, this is it, guys. DLSS is turned off at the moment. We're also going to try it out a little bit later. I'm going to restart the game. All right, please don't be a CPU intensive. Please don't be a CPU intensive. Okay, nope. It is losing like 10, 15, maybe even 20 frames from what we saw previously, guys, without ray tracing. So it's even worse with RT enabled. And, well, GPU usage is actually sometimes maxing out. I saw like 98% right there for a second, but as you can see, most of the time inside of a city, it's still going to be CPU bound, guys, with ray tracing enabled. So even the sheer intensiveness and demandingness, if those are words, from ray tracing on the GPU, it's not enough to make up for the CPU bottleneck, and the CPU is still a bottleneck as a result of it. Would I use ray tracing here in this particular title? No, because it just makes it more stuttery, as you can see, and it makes the CPU bottleneck even worse. So yeah, just avoid ray tracing, play without it. DLSS quality is whatever. I guess it helps a little bit in the woods area for you to get like 60 plus FPS sometimes, but yeah, there's no need to drop it from that. Just play at maximum settings as well. The maximum settings in this game, by the way, aren't really too different in terms of FPS and CPU intensiveness. Come on. It's the word that comes to mind, okay? I'm sorry. But yeah, the low settings as well as the highest settings in this game don't really differ too much in the load of the CPU, basically. So you can max it out and have this experience if you have a strong CPU. Great, right? Like a ton of stuttering. Frame times are all over the place. It just feels super bad, actually. Turn the camera around and stuff. It's bad, guys. It is bad. But with that said, I guess everybody knew it already. What? Wait. This time the red thing didn't hit me. Okay. Well, that's been it for this one. At least in the menus, you can get good FPS. Like 70. So hopefully one day they will optimize the game to the point where it runs as good as the menus. And even then, it's nothing special. So yeah. Thanks very much for watching. Don't buy this game if you don't want to support these practices, as well as like the microtransactions practices and stuff like that. Yeah, it's terrible in that regard too. Catch you in the next one. Love you all. Bye-bye.